Thank you for joining another episode of RMLD's Current Insights. My name is Greg Phipps, and I'm the General Manager of RMLD, and today I am joined by our Executive Assistant, Erin. Erin, tell me a little bit about you.
So my name is Erin MacDonough. I've been with RMLD for a little over a year. I come from a little bit of a different background than a lot of other people. I didn't start in the utilities.
You didn't?
I came from swimming pools, and normally water and electricity wouldn't mix, but I feel like I found a good fit with RMLD.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. It's a good fit. So today we're going to talk about trees.
Trees.
We like trees at RMLD.
Trees.
But as you say, swimming pools and electricity don't mix, and trees need to be a little bit away from power lines. So just kind of walk through a little bit of background. Kind of give me a little quick introduction on trees at RMLD.
So we like to keep trees in a well-managed,
Distance.
looking nice and presentable.
Yep.
So for the beginning part of this year, for the first 4 months, so through April, 45% of our outages within RMLD territory have been because of trees.
I'm sorry, because of trees.
Because of trees.
Yes.
The outages have been about 45%, which rightfully RMLD gets our residents restored in an average of 8 minutes for those same 4 months. So
8 minutes.
8 minutes, and they're back on, which is
All right,
great.
let's go back to, so that brings up a bit of a contextual question. Remind our listeners, what is our mission?
The mission of RMLD is reliable, low-cost, and increasingly non-carbon.
Great, and so exactly right. Reliable first and foremost. Keep
First
the
and
lights
foremost.
on.
Keep the lights on.
And then the second priority, make the bills affordable. And then the third element is be compliant, or for us right now, the metric is non-carbon. But first and foremost, keep the lights on. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that discussion in terms of how we keep the lights on. But Erin, I'll let you kind of walk us through a little bit of this. We'll kind of make this a tag team back and forth. So
Sounds like a plan.
We're gonna freeform this one, and we're gonna put graphics into this and pictures, and we want our audience again. Forgive me for not putting this in an introduction, but I think people know now that Current Insights is about us. It's another communication, another education, another outreach program associated with us letting our customers know what we do at RMLD. And when it comes to trees are typically either in the town's property, others on the public property, or the customer's property. And we want to make sure that trees and wires don't get too close to each other.
Yeah.
So why don't you kind of, if you want to lead off a little bit and I'll answer questions, or we can go vice versa.
Sure.
How do you want to go?
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions.
Well, good.
So, how do trees contribute us, RMLD, to achieving our mission?
Our mission, and all right. So in New England, trees are very prevalent, right? We're not in Utah or Arizona where trees are hard to come by. They are all around us, and we like trees. But as we talked about, I'm gonna actually share a few images here. So I'm gonna jump over to our picture of a house on a tree. Well, actually, the other way around. So this is. If you see this picture here, you can see on the left hand, so there's the house right in the center of the picture, which is good. And you notice it's a corner lot, and there's a nice, beautiful white picket fence around it. There's, of course, a utility pole, which on top of that utility pole has electric wires. But in this particular picture, you see something that doesn't look quite right. There's that mound of dirt to the right of that picture, and coming out of that mound of dirt is a tree, and the tree is horizontal. Not a typical position for a tree. So what we try and do, kind of going back to the core mission, is our intention is to trim trees such that they don't intersect either from the wind or in this particular case, just the thing just blew all the way over. But our intention is to make sure the trees don't cause down lines. And that's important from a reliability perspective, but it's also very important from a safety perspective, right? And from a safety perspective, obviously electricity, in order to make electricity work, our lines are electrified. And the reason they are 40 to 60 feet above the ground is so people don't touch the wires. If a tree, either a pole gets hit by a vehicle, for example, which happens on occasion, or a tree comes down and takes either the pole down or the wires down, the wires can end up on the ground. And so first and foremost, we want to make sure there's no energized wire. We want the wires never to be on the ground, period. But if they are, we want to make sure they're de-energized. So there's always a safety element. And that's part of the reason why we make sure that trees are trimmed away, either so if a wire, basically parallels the streets, whether it's what we call a primary wire, which for those of you who are technically interested, 13,800 volts, or what we call 13.8 kV, or sometimes 15 kV to round up. But there are usually 3 of those lines that run parallel to each other near the tops. And then for some of the more residential streets, there'll be a single wire, which will be one phase. And most of our stuff, we used to have a lot of 4K, but 4,000 volt, but now it's 13.8, either single or multi-phase. But our intention, going back to your core question of how they relate to us keeping the reliability, is to make sure we have at least 8 to 10 feet away. So when the wind blows or when the branches break off, they tend to fall to the ground and don't bring the wires down and don't create a short.
I think snow would also have an effect too. If you want to, I know you have another picture in there.
I might have another picture that talks about snow. I think that's a good picture. So this is this is the winter time. So obviously, as you just good prompt. We do get snow in the winters. We are in New England, right? And so this is a picture of actually a top of a tree branch actually breaking above and actually wrapping around. Now, this is a problem, even though the wires are still up in the air, which is a good thing. This is not a safe situation. So this is another situation where we want to make sure that the trees are not hanging on the wires. And so there's preparation. We work on this on a regular basis. I know we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes in terms of how frequently we do tree trimming. But in this particular case, our intention here would be to make sure that the trees are trimmed away from the wires so that we don't have these situations. Yeah. Never going to be perfect, and obviously we're in New England and we trim tree growth. Trees grow. We like tree growth. So yeah, that's part of the reason why, going back to your core question, managing the proximity of tree limbs around our wires is an important element of us keeping our reliability. As you mentioned, we are above local, regional, and national averages. In fact, we have our RP3 Diamond Award, which talks about our. We'll do that press release soon enough. But we are currently diamond level, which is it's 98 out of a possible 100 points, and there's only 3 MLPs in Massachusetts. Ourselves being one of the 3 that have achieved that. So we work hard to make sure reliability is good. And, from a customer perspective, what does that really mean? The lights are typically on. Right, so that's what we focus on. So, yeah, good question. Good question. Let's explore some more. Go ahead.
So we have a very large area. We have, the 4 towns, Reading, North Reading, Wilmington, and Lynnfield. There's a lot of trees. How do we know when trees need to be trimmed or pruned?
Yeah, so we actually have a program. So there's a big picture. Trees grow on a regular basis, right? Like every year, and so we try and do a program where somewhere between 3 and 5 years we go back and do the tree trimming. We cut them, trim the tree. Again, we're trimming trees. Our goal is not to take down trees. If trees grow, if they're planted in a way that affect our ability to keep the line clear, then we'll work with the town tree warden. We put together vegetation management plans on an annual basis. So there's a lot of. We're very respectful. We live in the towns as well. We like the whole area to be as beautiful as possible, but we also need to balance that against making sure that the lights stay on for all intents and purposes. So we have a vegetation management plan. We work on an annual basis with the town tree warden. In fact, I'll pull up an image here in just a second and show you, kind of how we think about this. So this is, share. There we go. So this is the town of Wilmington, and it just as an example. And this kind of shows the key lines and the key streets. But these colors here are indicating when's the last time we did tree trimming. And so you can see there's multiple colors here, from 21, 22, 23, and 24. And you can see just a quick view. We've done a lot of tree trimming, particularly on the primary roads, which is where the primary lines are. So we have a program that we walk through. In the case of Wilmington, the fact that we do very proactive tree trimming, and literally we are trimming 5 days a week unless there's a storm, and then if there's a storm, we're doing storm damage as well. But we typically have 2 crews in our territory every day, 4 to 5 days a week, every week of the year, except for normal holidays, et cetera. Interestingly enough, and so we look at data. Reading is a little bit different. We're working closely with the tree warding in Reading. We have a bit of catch-up to do relative to tree trimming. The data suggests that, going back to your first point, right, in the first 4 months of the year, 45% of the outages, which have not been many,
No.
but they're all tree related. We're being more consistent in the town of Reading. We've been focusing primarily on North Reading and Wilmington for a whole bunch of reasons, and Linfield gets its attention as well. So anyways, there's a direct relationship between, back to your original question, tree trimming and outages. And so we focus on that pretty aggressively.
Yeah. So how does our RMLD's philosophy coincide with the towns and the tree wardens for the different towns?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think at the end of the day, our intention is that's why we put together a vegetation plan. So that's the mechanism. We deal with the tree warden on a weekly basis, but to make sure that they know where we are working, to make sure it's consistent with what with the goals and desires of keeping the towns as beautiful as possible. So that's part of the mechanism that we use between the two. There's the other issue associated with, if I could, kind of go to a question from one of our customers. How do we think about it, right? So go ahead. We're gonna bring me along there. Oops, I jumped ahead there.
We have a ratepayer question that has two. She has 2 trees at the very edge of her property, and she was wondering how is it determined if that is a public tree or if it's a private tree, and she didn't know what steps.
So let me share. I'm liking this graphic thing. So this is an area in Reading, and
I want to tell everybody that the ratepayer did tell me that she has had her landscaper out there to trim her hedges. She was when she saw the Google image picture of the side of her house, she's like, "Oh my gosh, I swear, like the landscaper has been out."
So we're going to focus on the
trees.
The trees themselves. So you can see the utility pole, and you can see this is a residential area, and you can see it up here with hopefully the mouse. But there's a tree that basically bisects. And it goes on both sides of that. That's typically a tree that we would do trimming on, and the primary decision maker in terms of where it is from the town itself. And so the town tree warden would would basically be part of the decision team to figure out who's got responsibility for it. If the tree's on private property, it's the town, it's the individual property owner's responsibility to maintain a tree. We will do trimming as necessary to make sure that service gets to the property. In the case of public piece, like this particular one was, if it's within roughly 6 feet of the curb, the road, and lots of the town streets don't have curbs, but roughly where that would be. If it's just clearly within 6 feet, then that would typically be a town owned tree or a public tree. And the town would have responsibility for maintaining that tree, but we'd have responsibility for trimming it. So talking to RMLD and talking to the tree warden in the respective towns are probably the best way to get that answered. We do want to make sure, and then if customers see, back to your original part of the question, if customers notice on their particular block or near their home or whatever that it looks particularly overgrown, they should definitely give us a call. Call the RMLD, the main number. And we'll send somebody out to take a look at it, and as appropriate, if it's already in the schedule, then we'll look at it. But again, our intention is to make sure that trimming is done to minimize the outages, which means we trim. So our customers, while we're in the field all the time, our customers are our eyes and ears. So we appreciate any input and feedback they can give us.
Yeah, I know we've received feedback from local police and fire departments as well when they notice trees are starting to encroach. on
exactly right.
It's great because we're open 24/7. We are staffed.
24/7. That is right.
Somebody
People
will
don't realize
always be able
that.
to handle the call.
There is somebody always at our desk. Customer service, 7:30 to 5:30, Monday through Thursday, and then off hours you can call the main number as well.
Yep.
So that definitely works. Yeah, you're exactly right.
And that goes right to the control room.
Yep.
Who is there?
Who are always there. Always there. Yeah, I think the other thing just to keep in mind, as we mentioned, we have 2 crews out every day. So it's a lot of territory. We cover roughly 51 square miles.
Oh.
There are approximately 18,000 utility poles in our territory. And then there's wires between each one. Obviously there's conductors between each one. So it's an effort to keep it all clear. And if there will always be instances where trees, obviously going back to your 45% example that you mentioned before, trees are trees, and then the second most common one is wildlife. In our area, that's wildlife is known primarily as squirrels. Yep. So squirrels have an affinity for electricity, but at some point it's too close. So and that causes outages. So we try and we have squirrel guards. We have protection that we try and put up, but squirrels are very creative creatures, and trees, they don't see the wire. They just keep growing. So we do our best to manage both in a responsible and respectful way. Our intention, and in fact, as part of our annual budget, we actually have we have some dollars allocated, not trivial amounts, to tree planting as well. So we do tree planting in the territory. We just want to make sure that we don't put them right underneath the wire because that'd be counterproductive.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
So kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
What else should we talk about on trees here? What key highlights haven't we hit yet?
Well, I noticed in a prior episode you had talked about getting a real-time assessment of a tree trimming schedule project on our RMLD homepage, and I was just wondering if there's any developments or updates. Is that still something?
So I think some of the images that we showed earlier will be some sort of an indication of where we've been, and then hopefully as we can, we have so for those listeners, this, right? We have a GIS team that manage our graphical information system, our geographic, but it's graphically oriented. So we are getting ready to roll out outage management again.
Oh, nice.
Which will be great. Our goal is to get that out this summer, and we'll start with it for storms. Just make it easier for our customers. We want customers to report in. But if we already know about the outage, we want to save them the steps, so we're trying to get that up. But at the same time, also, we'll take these kind of maps and start the intention when we do the web update between now and the end of the year to have those maps actually laid out as well. So here's where we've been over the past couple of years, and here's what's planned this year. Ultimately, we would like to have a program where we use text messages, and I'll talk about that in terms of the permissions in just a second. But basically be able to communicate to our customer via text messages. Most people have mobile phones, of course. But if there's an outage, that's obviously important, just so they know. But secondarily, in terms of if there's some activity, either there's a planned outage, or there's a storm-related outage, or there's a tree-related outage. But if we know if there's a planned outage, we want to let our customers know. Now, typically, if they're larger, we'll do either door hangers, or if it's a larger area, we'll do door hangers, or if it's commercial, we'll make phone calls, commercial, industrial. But we're trying to figure out a more efficient mechanism to communicate with our customers. So that's probably a second half of 2024 event. Okay. That as we know, is IVR. It might be in early 2025. But I think the basic graphics on the website will be part of our web design, which is in process as we speak. Great question. Really good question. More communication.
Yep.
More communication.
We love communication.
This is a great example of us trying to reach out to our customers. Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. What else any other key questions about our program that we should make sure we hit on today?
I feel like that was all I had for trees, but I did have another ratepayer question in case you're wondering.
We like ratepayer questions.
So I got a question from a renter, so not a homeowner, a renter, and they were wondering what steps can they take to reduce their energy consumption.
Reduce energy consumption.
Yeah, because they can't really change out the heating system or anything like that.
Yeah. So So a couple of things. So homeowners, and we'll focus primarily on a renter right now. So the renters are places where they can help reduce their energy cost is the basic stuff. So lights being on or off, right? Thermostats being either particularly warm in the wintertime or particularly cool in the summertime. Probably summertime is a bigger lever because air conditioning is just it's only electricity. Now sometimes heat in the wintertime could be, as we mentioned before. Typically in our community, 50% of our homes are heated by natural gas and 48% by oil. So there's a growing number of air source heat pump people, but in the summertime certainly, letting the temperature and particularly hot days go a little bit higher is good. I'll say the basic stuff in terms of using storm windows properly, right? There's many of the older homes have what is known as triple tracks. So in the wintertime, making sure there's 3 layers. There's the screen, the lower layer, and the upper layer. And in the summertime, you have the outer 2 layers, which are both glass all the way up. But in the wintertime, have the 2 layers. So anyways, use your triple tracks properly. Put what is known as V-groove tape around the doors to the outside. Just minimize heat escaping from the outside. Those are the big pieces.
Is ghost electricity draw a thing?
It's a real thing.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, ghost electricity
is.
Yeah. So for our listeners, ghost electricity draw is where you have a charger that's not charging anything, and so while it's not a big load, current is basically so electricity is current, amps is pulled through a system, but depending upon how your chargers are set up, some of the chargers, particularly the older ones, there is what's known as a parasitic, call it ghost draw, but a parasitic draw because there's still current going through if it's a small transformer. So there is some load lost, even though there's nothing. If it's plugged into the wall, there's some load tied to it. And is it big? Not huge.
Yeah.
But every little bit helps.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is a real thing. Yeah, it is a real thing. Other fun questions.
Yeah.
Those are the big ones.
Those were the big ones.
Good. Well, we had a chance in today's session. Thank you, Erin, for prompting us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think it was fun to help educate our customers relative to trees and how we think about them.
Again, we love trees.
Yeah, trees are good. We like them. Just we need to make sure that they're next to our lines. So we are very respectful, but we're going to continue doing that. We're going to continue doing the best we can to communicate to our customers, what's happening. But as you mentioned before, we want them to reach back to us. So call us, email us, go to our website for contact information. So we want that communication. But that's going to wrap up another episode of our Current Insights from RMLD, Reading Municipal Light Department. And, just as Erin mentioned at the very beginning, our mission remains really clear. It is
reliable, low cost, and increasingly non-carbon.
Very good. Well, we thank you very much from RMLD.
Thank you.